What the kids born in the 2000s got wasn't just music. They heard gang violence set to 808s, wrapped in designer clothes, and delivered like a lifestyle worth wanting. It spread through YouTube, 106 in Park, and every school hallway in America before parents had a name for what was happening. A generation learned what real looked like from artists who were living and dying by it. These are 10 rap songs that traumatized 2000s kids. February 2012, a 16-year-old named Keith Cozart uploaded a video to YouTube from his grandmother's home in Woodlawn on Chicago's South Side. It was a music video for his song I Don't Like, featuring Lil Reese. He was wearing an ankle monitor. He was under house arrest, and the music he was making from that yard was already shouting out O Block and the broader South Side drill network before most of those neighborhoods had anyone else speaking for them. Within weeks, the video had millions of views, and Kanye West had remixed it alongside Pusha T, Big Sean, and Jadakiss, giving a drill record from one of the city's most violent neighborhoods the cosign of hip-hop royalty. The song named the people and situations Keith didn't have patience for: snitches, fake smiles, and anyone on the wrong side of who he was. The production from Young Chop was stark, 808s, and empty space, with nothing comfortable in it. The hook was 3 words repeated like a statement of fact. What hit kids who weren't from Woodlawn, or who weren't from anywhere like it, was the total absence of hesitation in Keith's delivery. He wasn't performing danger, he was performing indifference to it. For a generation raised to care about everything, that indifference was magnetic. Kids from suburbs they'd never leave started dressing like him, talking like him, and performing that same flat affect in school hallways. A major label offered Keith a multi-million-dollar deal before he could legally leave his grandmother's yard. The generation watching logged all of it. Pooh Shiesty, real name Lontrell Williams Jr., was born October 8, 2000, which means when Back in Blood dropped in January 2021 and climbed to number 14 on the Billboard Hot 100, the kids consuming it weren't listening to an older generation anymore. They were listening to one of their own. The song is about retaliation. The title is street language for returning violence to someone that did it to you. Shiesty delivered it with the same flat certainty that had defined drill since Keith, except where Keith had seemed mythological to the kids who first found him, Shiesty felt immediate. He was the same age as his audience. He came up through the same music they did. When Lil Durk jumped on the remix, the song crossed from regional phenomenon to mainstream fixture. Shiesty was arrested in October 2021, less than a year after the record dropped. In December 2022, he was sentenced to 63 months in federal prison on a federal weapons charge connected to a 2020 shooting. He was only 22 years old. For 2000s kids, this was the moment the script closed on itself. The generation that had grown up watching Keith on house arrest, Von telling stories about O Block, and Pop Smoke building Brooklyn Drill had now produced its own version. Same age, same music, same outcome. The only difference was they'd been watching it happen their whole lives, and it still didn't stop it from happening again. In 2012, a 13-year-old from Chicago released a song about murder, not lyrical bravado or hypotheticals. He rapped about bodies and gunfire in the same matter-of-fact tone that Chief Keef had made the genre's signature, except Keef was 16 when he started. Mouse was 13. The song's title means to get killed. It's Chicago street slang for a fatal shooting. Mouse delivered it with the flat effect that had become drill's default voice, as if the subject matter weren't remarkable, which in the neighborhood he was from, it wasn't. What made Get Smoked impossible to write off as controversy chasing was that Mouse didn't seem to be performing. The video was shot in his neighborhood. His mother was present on set. Adults were involved in his management. For kids watching on YouTube, the most disturbing thing wasn't the song's content. It was what the song revealed about where that content came from. A generation old enough to have been his classmates could hear clearly that this wasn't a bit. He was 13 years old, and it was already the only world he knew. He wasn't in danger of being corrupted by the music. The music was already a document of what the world had done to him. Future, Navadius Wilburn, was from Atlanta, not Chicago. But by 2017, what Keith had built in Woodlawn had already traveled through Atlanta, through Baton Rouge, and into Brooklyn, finding young people in every city who wanted a language that matched what they were living. Nowhere did it take hold more completely than in Atlanta, where Future was doing to drug culture what Keith had done to street violence. Mask Off peaked at number 5 on the Billboard Hot 100, built on a flute sample and a Metro Boomin beat, and became a decade-defining record. 2 words repeated until they felt like a religion: Percocet and Molly. The song wasn't ambiguous about what it was celebrating. It was a melody for getting high, delivered with the same deadpan commitment Keith had brought to violence. Future wasn't commenting on the lifestyle. He was actually inside it. What is crazy, though, is Future has stated he doesn't use drugs the way his music portrays him to. For 2000s kids, Mask Off arrived when Percocet use among teenagers was already climbing. The song didn't cause the opioid crisis, but it gave that crisis a soundtrack that felt glamorous. Kids who never touched a pill were showing up to school using the language. The flute sample became one of the most recognizable sounds of the decade, and what it was soundtracking had nothing to do with music. Kentrell Deshaun Gaulden was born in Baton Rouge in 1999, making him a child of the late 90s, who came of age in the era Keith built. By the time Outside Today reached number 31 on the Billboard Hot 100 in early 2018, he was 18 years old and had already been shot at, arrested on an attempted murder charge, and had multiple children. He rapped about all of it. Outside Today was a flex record, but what made it hit differently for the kids who found it was the biographical context. Here was an 18-year-old who had accumulated more real violence than most people encounter in a lifetime, and the song's tone treated that as just part of the resume. For 2000s kids who were 10 or 11 when they first found his videos, he was a peer. Not a distant legend like Tupac, but a teenager from the South, making music about his actual life and uploading it himself. The more he got arrested, the bigger his streaming numbers got. A generation learned through him that consequence and celebrity weren't mutually exclusive. Sometimes, consequence was the celebrity. A significant portion of that generation started measuring authenticity the same way, by how much you'd been through and how little it seemed to bother you. King Von, Davin Bennett, grew up in Parkway Gardens, the Chicago project known as O Block. He'd watched people he loved die young. He'd been arrested multiple times. When he started making records, he brought the precision of lived experience to his lyrics and used it to build something drill hadn't quite had before: story. The song was released in December of 2018. Crazy Story was a first-person account of street violence, narrated with the calm detail of someone who had been inside it, built with cinematic momentum that made listeners wait for an ending they could already feel coming. Von wasn't performing violence. He was recreating it. For 2000s kids, this was the moment drill became something you could discuss in terms of craft. Millions of teenagers who'd grown up on Keith's blunt aesthetics now had something more sophisticated to imitate, which was street violence as genre fiction, delivered by someone who lived around the corner from where it was happening. King Von was killed November 6, 2020, outside a hookah lounge in Atlanta. He was 26. Surveillance footage circulated online within hours. A generation that had grown up watching his narratives now watched his life end the same way his songs described others ending. They'd always known the stories were real, but after November 2020, they understood it much differently. Bashar Jackson from Canarsie in Brooklyn, New York, was 20 years old when he uploaded a record in April 2019 that sounded like it came from Chicago, but didn't. Pop Smoke had taken the drill template and rebuilt it with New York DNA, slower, heavier, with a baritone that made him sound twice his age. Welcome to the Party became the era's anthem and the blueprint for Brooklyn drill, the sound that would eventually take over the entire industry. The song itself was a flex, a party invitation, a declaration, but what it represented was drill going global. By 2019, the sound a 16-year-old on house arrest had invented in Woodlawn had become the dominant youth aesthetic on 2 continents. Pop Smoke was killed on February 19, 2020, shot during a home invasion at a rented house in Hollywood Hills. He was 20 years old. His address had reportedly been shared on social media. His debut album came out posthumously that summer and debuted at #1 on the Billboard 200. For 2000s kids, his death at 20 hit differently than a celebrity death usually does. He was young enough to feel like a peer. The generation saying his name at school the week before his death was the same generation standing at memorial pop-ups in his honor a week later. Welcome to the Party had felt like an invitation. It became an anthem for grieving someone you'd never met but felt like you had. Before anyone in rap called it PTSD, G Herbo had been rapping about the condition for 8 years. Herbert Wright III grew up on Chicago's East Side in the same 2012 drill era as Keith, watched childhood friends die, and had been incarcerated. He'd put all of it on record. In 2020, he finally named what it was. The album's title track featured Juice WRLD, who had died a few months before the song's release. Juice WRLD's verse, recorded before his own death at 21, described the same loop of anxiety and hypervigilance that Herbo built the album around. 2 people from the drill generation on the same record, one of them already gone. What made this song different from everything else on this list is that it named the thing. Not the violence, not the lifestyle, but the psychological damage that comes from growing up inside it. A generation raised on music that made gang life look aspirational was now being told by someone who lived it that the cost was real, clinical, and permanent. It reached #7 on the Billboard 200, and it didn't come with a solution. It came with the genre finally telling the truth about what it had built and who it had broken. When it was released in April of 2023, All My Life peaked at #2 on the Billboard Hot 100, the highest charting solo single of Durk's career. The song samples Casey and JoJo's 1998 ballad of the same name, which is a strange choice for a rapper who came up in the earliest days of Chicago drill, except it wasn't strange at all if you knew what he'd been carrying. By 2023, Durk, whose real name is Dirk Derrick Banks, born 1992, had watched his brother die in 2014, and his protege, King Von, killed in 2020. Multiple members of his Only the Family label had been shot, arrested, or buried. All My Life earned a Grammy nomination and landed in heavy rotation. With all of that still unresolved in the background, the record sounds like what it feels like to be the last one standing, not triumphant, just still there. J. Cole's verse adds weight, but the context is Durk's throughout. For 2000s, kids who'd grown up on the whole arc, this was proof that surviving it was possible. Durk hadn't gotten there by softening anything. He'd gotten there by outlasting nearly everyone around him. From where he started, #2 on the Billboard, Hot 100 is a different kind of number, and a generation that had grown up counting the losses right alongside him knew exactly what it cost. In June 2024, a Chicago drill rapper known as Bloodhound Lil Jeff was shot and killed on the city's south side, in a neighborhood people referred to as Trap City. He was 24 years old. Footage of the incident spread across social media within hours, landing in the feeds of people who'd never heard of him, alongside the people who'd been streaming his music for years. What made this different from the King Von footage, or the Pop Smoke home invasion, or any of the other real violence that had trailed this music since 2012, was the generation watching it. The kids who saw Lil Jeff's death on their phones had grown up with all of it. They were 5 or 6 when Love Sosa was in rotation. They were middle schoolers when Crazy Story dropped. They'd absorbed 12 years of music that framed this world as aspirational, as entertainment, as something worth wanting. And then it showed up on their For You page. That's the arc this music built. Chief Keef made the streets look like a lifestyle to kids who weren't from there. Those kids grew up. The streets never changed. Eventually, the distance between the music and the reality collapsed the way it always was going to, in real time, on a small screen. For a generation raised on drill, that wasn't just a news story. That was the ending of the story they'd been watching their whole lives. These songs didn't traumatize 2000s kids the way a scary movie does, by showing them something from a safe distance and then switching the light back on. They pulled them toward something. They made violence, drugs, and early death feel like proof of authenticity, like a badge worth earning. And by the time the generation that grew up on Chief Keef was old enough to understand what they'd been absorbing, it had already shaped the way they dressed, the way they spoke, what they thought real was, and what they expected from themselves and from the world. What the drill era did was collapse the gap between entertainment and reality until there wasn't one. The artists who made this type of music weren't performing as characters. They were living a life, making records about it, and watching those records travel into the bedrooms of kids who lived nothing like them. Some of those kids went looking for that life. Some stayed home and were changed by the aspiration alone. Either way, the gap closed. Music has always reflected the streets. What drill did was bring the streets to everyone with a Wi-Fi connection and call it culture. The generation it shaped is still living with what that music told them was worth wanting. If any of these records hit differently now than they did when you first heard them, drop the song in the comments. Like and subscribe if you want more on the music that shaped this generation.